Coming up on this episode of Common Denominator.
My drive has always come from a place of wanting to help and have impact. So that's probably the biggest thing for me, is I really want to do something meaningful with my time here.
Hi, and welcome to Common Denominator, where we shine a light on people striving to make the world a better place. Today, an icon in the world of fitness and nutrition. Calabrese is a literal powerhouse and the most viewed super trainer on the Beachbody On Demand platform, with over 140 million views. She's written books, hosted shows, and has helped thousands of people become their best, happiest, and healthiest selves through dedication, motivation, and sweat. So go ahead and enjoy the show. Hi, Odom, and welcome to Common Denominator.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be on here with you today.
The thing that really sticks out to me is kind of your mission, because it's very holistic. It's getting people to where they want to be from a fitness perspective, basically without any restrictions or depriving them of things. Why is that so important to you?
Anytime you start to restrict or deprive yourself, you're setting yourself up to not be able to follow through. The second you're told you can't have something, it's all we think about, right? It's like, oh, I'm never eating chocolate again. And then the only thing you're thinking about is, I want chocolate, I want chocolate, I want chocolate. And I also don't think that that's what life is about, right? Like, we're here to love it and live it and enjoy it. And we also want to feel really good and live disease-free as long and as much as possible. So it's finding the balance between all of that. But I will say this, I think there's a common misconception that we have, and that is really been magnified in the last couple years, where it's like, if you practice balance or if you practice moderation, the people that like to sort of attack health will say that that's restrictive, right? Like, if you're like, well, it's not a good idea to drink the entire bottle of wine every night, they're like, well, that's restrictive. You're telling me to restrict myself. Or if you say, don't eat dessert every day or cut back on the amount of added sugar you have, there will be people who will attack it and call that restrictive. I think there's a deeper rooted issue there that they probably have to address, because it's not restrictive. It's just, if you think of it as like two sides of a coin, there's two sides to the coin of disordered eating. And one side that is very accepted is the under eating and medical terms like anorexia and bulimia. But we don't seem to acknowledge the other side of that disordered eating coin, which is the excessive overconsumption of certain things, overconsumption of alcohol, overconsumption of highly processed foods, overconsumption of sugar. And we seem to just want to really normalize that. So my goal, I always aim to teach what I call common sense nutrition, practicing the basics that make us feel really good so that they can be sustainable for life.
And I think that, there are, I guess we're wired that way. Like you said, in other words, if we're told we can't do something, I know myself, if I think about it, if you're told you can't do something, I wonder why that is, that we go ahead and we go the opposite way. But I know the stat is super high. Just take like a New Year's resolution. Within 2 months, I think it's like 95% drop out. What is it practically? Again, look, always go into those practical tools. What can people do knowing that? We know that today. I'm going to take this resolution on. What tools can they use that they don't drop out, that they continue? Right. What's like a practical standpoint?
Well, I think the first thing is when you set that goal for yourself, it's really making sure you're defining the goal, right? I'm going to lose weight. That's not really how much weight. Are you losing a pound? Are you losing 5 pounds? Are you losing 25 pounds? Are you giving yourself a timeline to do it in? And are you giving yourself a realistic time frame to do it in? And then are you setting those actionable steps? Like, are you defining the actionable steps and then implementing them? And a lot of people will say that, well, my New Year's resolution is to lose weight, or my New Year's resolution is to give up blah, blah, blah. But they don't identify the why behind it. Why do they want to do that? Why do you want to lose weight? Why is that important to you right now? Why is it a must and not a I should lose weight, but I must lose weight right now? Because when you start to do that, you'll go deeper into the reason behind it. And it won't be, I want a six pack. Six pack, great. I love aesthetics. I'm here for aesthetics. It's just not my first priority when it comes to my fitness. It's maybe my second or third. My health is always my first priority. So when you start to define the why behind your goal, it's going to make it easier to stick with it on those days where you don't wake up feeling like you want to do it. Because let's be honest, we all have them. I'm not built differently than other people where I wake up every single day and I just can't wait to get in the gym and kick my own butt. There are days I wake up and I don't want to do it. On those days, I have to assess why that is. Am I not feeling great? Am I run down? Do I need a rest day? Am I sore? Or did I just wake up on the wrong side of the bed and my mental space isn't there? And maybe I change up the workout. But identifying the why behind it so that you can stick with it. And then also saying, here are the steps that I am going to take to achieve that goal. I want to lose 25 pounds. Okay, well, who do I need to become? Because it's not really about the goal. It's about who you need to become to achieve that goal. Do you need to become the person that keeps the promises that you've made to yourself? Do you need to become the person who wakes up 30 minutes earlier? Do you need to become the person who grocery shops or cooks at home more instead of going through the drive-thrus? What are the habits that need to change?
I love that kind of reverse engineering, right? So you see the movie, and that is the common thread. Any type of discipline, it's that you see the end, and that helps you. And then the second point that you made, which I've gotten from many, many guests on the show, it's the idea of your personal why. Why am I doing this? Spend the time, meditate, and figure that why out. Because if you want, in this world, I think always like you want to get to a result, the most common way, process and procedure, you have to just do the work over a long period of time, and then you have your why. That's why you do it, your clarity.
Yeah.
I think about that a lot. And I know that you've broken it down. We'll start with nutrition, and obviously there's the fitness side. You have your main program is the 21-day fix. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was my first program with Beachbody 10 years ago. The tagline for it was simple fitness, simple nutrition, fast results. And that doesn't mean that it's a gimmick. It just meant with the simple fitness part of it, it's not that the workouts are going to be easy. They're 30 minutes long. They're designed so that everybody can do them. I have a modifier there. So whether you've been working out your whole life or never worked out a day in your life, what I mean when I say simple fitness is that I kept the movement patterns simple. Everybody can squat for the most part. We can lunge, we can bicep curl, we can shoulder press. So the movements are not going to be so complicated that you can't do them. The modifier is there to show you how to take the impact out or lighten the resistance or shorten the range of motion so that you can build up your strength. The nutrition component, the reason it's simple nutrition is I created these color-coded containers. They're basically rainbow color. Each color represents a different food group. So your fruits, your veggies, your protein, healthy carbohydrates, healthy fats, seeds, salad dressings, and oils. And we've really just gotten out of balance with how much we eat, right? We might overeat on the carbs, undereat on the protein, not get enough veggies. So all of the science is done on the back end so that when you start the program, you do one quick little formula based on your weight, your goals, and the amount of movement you're doing in a day. And it's going to tell you how many of those color-coded containers you eat in a day. So how many servings of vegetables, how many servings of fruit, how many servings of protein. And it's balanced macronutrients. So it's 40% carbs, 30% protein, 30% healthy fat. I even explain to people like how often to have dessert, how often to have an alcoholic beverage, how you can substitute those in for one of your yellow containers, your starchy carbohydrates, so that there doesn't have to be this restrictive mindset, but more this balanced mindset of understanding how to fuel your body.
I love that you kind of took because people want kind of you've made it easier, kind of take out that brain damage side. People have, where do I start? How do I begin? And it's like step 1, 2, 3, and you've labeled that, which is very practical. That now I understand that from the nutrition standpoint. I know my wife, she's a holistic health counselor years ago, and she always would tell me, you start with one thing. It's like, you would have a certain lifestyle, and she would say, okay, you're drinking soda. You know what? Start drinking water. Because we have to be realistic with kind of who we are as people, right? You can't, all of a sudden you have this lifestyle, you're going to McDonald's and you're doing these things, right? So is it more moderate, the program, or is it, in other words, this is holistically what we're going to do day one? How does that actually play out nutrition-wise?
Yeah, it is more holistic. This is what we're going to do day one, so that, there are a lot of people that do want to just dive in and go for it, and they want the whole prescription program right there.
Right.
But there's so much variety in it. Like, even when you look at the food lists, I explain to people that the food lists work in a hierarchy. So the top 1/3 is the best of the best. Middle is a little bit less, and the bottom is maybe the things you only want to pick a couple times a week. That's where you'll get into like crackers, chips, pancakes, waffles. I now have 2 cookbooks that go with the program, over 1,000 different recipes: breakfast, lunch, dinner, dessert, cocktails, holidays. So it really does cover it. But I do actually love what your wife says, and I teach that too. It's habit stacking, basically, where, like I was saying earlier, you don't have to do a complete 180. And that's usually where people get messed up on the New Year's resolutions too. They try to make a huge shift all at once. It becomes very overwhelming and not something that they've integrated into their system and into their life. So it becomes hard to sustain. So like I love something called crowding out. So, right, if somebody's drinking soda every day, instead of saying don't drink soda every day, I say, can you drink 8 ounces of water before you drink the soda? In which case, 9 times out of 10, their thirst will be quenched. Their stomach will be a little bit full from the water. They're probably not going to drink as much soda, and they'll slowly start to crowd out the soda.
And I love also how you talk about removing the personal feelings from food, like becoming like an observer of that. I do know, even through my own journey, there were points where I would be like an emotional, right? You can be like an emotional eater. You had a tough day, and then you eat something which is not good for you, and then it just spirals the wrong way. But tell us about why that's so important, removing that kind of the personal feelings.
That, I think, is the most important thing you can do. And I also think it's the hardest thing that we all have to do. And I don't know if anybody has mastered it. I know I haven't mastered it. It's still, we use food to celebrate. There's food when we're in mourning. There's it's a part of daily like fun. Okay, I'm going to go to dinner with friends. I'm going to go to drinks with friends. I'm going to have people over. We're going to have game night. There's food. So food is everywhere all the time. It's really hard to not attach emotion around it. But at least if you can become aware of the emotion that you're attaching. So when, it's become very common to go, oh my God, I've had a hard day, I'm going to have a glass of wine. Or the one I love seeing, and when I say love, I mean hate, is like, oh, it's mom o'clock. I'm a mom. It's hard, so I guess I'll drink. And it's like, if we just stop and ask ourselves, does that change? Does it change anything? Does eating the pint of ice cream change whatever you're stressed about? It doesn't. Does eating the bag of chips change what you're sad about? It doesn't. It won't fix the problem. So when we can just stop and just have that split second of, is it actually going to make me feel better? Or is it probably going to make me feel worse, both physically and emotionally? It becomes a little bit easier every time to make the choice that's going to serve you long term. There will be times where you're just like, I just want the cake. And I'm going to eat the cake, and I'm not going to feel bad about the cake.
Sure.
And that's great. Like, that's where I feel like the decision should be made from. Like, hey, I'm on a health journey. I'm always looking to improve my health. We were out last night to dinner, a big group of us, after a growth day with Brendan Bouchard, and, it was a nice dinner. And there was a really nice bottle of wine on the table. I was like, I'm going to have the wine because I'm just here and I'm enjoying the moment. It's not about happy, sad, frustrated, long day. It's just, I'm choosing to have it. I'm going to choose to have one glass, not three, along with my meal. And it was great. And then you go about it and it doesn't become a second thought or a thing that you obsess about. But I think when we make those decisions, those unhealthy decisions from an emotional state, you'll devour the bag of cookies or the bag of chips without thinking twice about it because you're having an emotion. And when you get to the bottom of the bag, the next emotion that comes is anger and frustration with yourself.
Yeah. I love that you talk about that, about decisions and coming from an emotional standpoint. I think holistically in life, and we'll see that if we observe ourselves and our movement, right? If we, the decisions that we make, that you should have all emotions, but the ones that we make, right? The ones that we make from an emotional standpoint, those generally tend not to have a good result, generally, right? So you consciously made a decision that you're going to have the wine last night. Only recently for myself, I was like, I don't feel good or I do feel good. How do I feel? So I relate to that. I understand that concept, and it's really shifted materially the type of foods and the things that I do nutrition-wise. Just a quick reminder, this is the Common Denominator Podcast. If you're enjoying this episode, we'd be grateful if you could leave us a 5-star rating and review, and subscribe to our YouTube page if you haven't already done so. Thanks so much. Now, back to the show. Tell us I knew you sold over 500,000 copies of your book, Fixate. So what's the top 1 or 2 key points from the book that you'd say?
So Fixate is actually just a recipe book. It's literally just 101 of the recipes that go along with the nutrition component with the color-coded containers. But I think the biggest thing that people could probably take away, like I said, it doesn't have the program included with the book. But the biggest takeaway I think that people would get from looking at Fixate Volume 1 or Fixate Volume 2 is the amount of variety that you can eat. There's a common misconception that if you're eating healthy, it's going to be bland, it's going to be boring, you're not going to be satiated, you're going to be hungry all the time. And all of a sudden you start making these recipes and you're like, this is great. I can have, meatloaf, I can have burgers, I can have fries, I can have pizza, and I can do it in a way that is delicious. My brother is a chef. He's the one who writes all the recipes. And I say all the time, I'm like, guys, I love food. I grew up in Italian restaurants. My dad owned Italian restaurants. Like, you're not going to tell me that tomato sauce spread on a cracker is pizza. Like, that's not pizza to me. I want real pizza. But I just want to know that I'm doing it in a way that's balanced. So I make sure I have veggies with it. For me, I have it gluten-free because gluten upsets my stomach. But things like that, so I think that would be a big takeaway just from starting to make the recipes is it's not hard to make healthy recipes. They're delicious and you really are going to be satiated.
And let's talk about for a minute, from an exercise perspective, someone starting, they don't do much exercise. What's a good way to kind of start? What's a good strategy exercise-wise for someone like that?
Look, if you've never exercised before, if it's just something as simple as getting up and taking a 10-minute walk, do it. Just get your body in motion. Start to loosen it up. But also, you can find a program like 21 Day Fix that has sound science behind it that was designed for people to be able to do of all fitness level, of all sizes, and give yourself some grace and some space to not be perfect on day one. The workouts happen in minute-long intervals, so each exercise happens for a minute in that particular program. Give yourself the space to not last for the full minute and be perfectly okay with that because it's just your day one. I tell people all the time, when you're watching the program and I'm on the screen and my background cast is on the screen and it's day one, it is not our day one. I've spent months writing that program. I've spent weeks with the cast rehearsing them so that they know what they're doing. I cast people that have a really strong fitness background to make sure they can handle the intensity and the lights and the energy that comes with filming. So your day one is not our day one. So don't compare yourself. Be okay with fumbling through it. Know that you're probably going to be pretty sore the next day. Do the things that you need to do to help with that. Stretch, drink plenty of water, fuel your body properly. Those are all those little things that you can do that are going to make a big difference.
And I want to bring this out to the audience because I love that you said that, because in reality, every single person that I've seen, the way actually success in anything that you do, it's just completely straight. And then one day it happens. And it's just consistent work over a long period of time. So even you know, you're doing all this prep for your shows, right? It's just like, and people, you see, that's the problem with social media. You see all these things, and a lot of it, the real people, it's the people that are silently working for years and years, and they get to a certain place. I mean, I want to just go back to your backstory because it's, where you've come is tremendous. Tell us about the lessons you've learned there, because I know at a certain point in your life, you're basically a personal trainer living paycheck to paycheck. Do you still have that inside of you? Is that your drive? What is your framework in reference to where you were and where you are today?
My drive has always come from a place of wanting to help and have impact. So that's probably the biggest thing for me, is I really want to do something meaningful with my time here. But it also does come from how I grew up. I grew up very blue collar. I don't know if that's what you're allowed to say anymore, but that is what it was. Like, I grew up very middle class, maybe almost at times lower middle class. And we struggled. But I knew I wanted more from my life than to struggle every day. So really, I think my drive comes from that, which is I'm in charge of me. I'm up to me. How I live, that's all in my hands. How hard am I willing to work for the life that I want? And I've been really willing to work as much, as long, as hard as I need to get to where I am. And it didn't happen overnight. It's like you were saying, it's very easy to come on social media and see somebody where I'm at now and assume it came easy or assume I grew up this way. And I didn't. It was 10 years of being in the industry, but really my whole life of working and being told I wasn't good enough and I wasn't going to make it, and getting knocked down, and, having those moments of breaking down, but never giving up and getting back up and being like, all I know is if I quit, I'm never going to have it. So I can quit and just know that it's not a possibility, or I can keep working and make it my reality. And I think that gets lost a lot for people. I don't understand the quitting mentality, because if you really have a goal, you will never get there if you quit. Yeah. It's just a given. It might take longer. It took me 10 years longer than I expected it to. I thought I was going to move to LA and do my thing, and within a year or two, I would be doing big things. And it took 10 years. But I know if at any point I had given up, I wouldn't be living the life I'm living right now.
That's also the common denominator, that kind of fortitude. And I see psychologically, you have a certain experience as a child, and unfortunately, some people, it's two choices. But I think it comes the greatest humans that impact and do things in this world that had a certain experience, and either the experience broke them, or like you did, fortitude, grit, but then doing tremendous things and helping hundreds of thousands of people reach their fitness goals. So thank you for that. I mean, that's tremendous. And we don't think it's just something inside of us and just, going through it. I think of, I always ask all guests, and I have an idea what it might be, but what is something that you're deeply grateful for?
Honestly, I would say right now, it's my health. And that would probably shock some people, but I've gone through it in the last several years. I went through a really bad journey with my gut health probably 5 or 6 years ago. I was in a really dark, bad place. I was struggling. I was losing weight. And I know people probably are like, oh, poor you, you were losing weight, but I wasn't trying to lose weight. I looked sick. I felt sick. I was slipping into a really dark depression. Um, I was losing all of my muscle definition despite still exercising. I had no energy. I had so much brain fog. I was seeing doctor after doctor with no answers. And it took about 3 years before I found the right doctor that would run a simple blood test and tell me I had food sensitivities. And because I had had them for so long and they were undiagnosed for so long, by the time we figured it out, I was basically malnourished because I wasn't absorbing anything that I was eating. My adrenals were completely tapped out, which can cause a cascade of effects for your hormone health, which I'm working through now. But I think about it and I think, had I not been my own biggest advocate, because I had doctors telling me it was in my head. I had doctors telling me I needed to see a different type of doctor, basically a psychologist or psychiatrist. And I would just wake up every day and I'm like, is this what 33 is? Is this what 34 is? Am I just supposed to feel this bad? But I also knew your body's not supposed to feel this bad. Like, our bodies are meant to work. So something is wrong. There's a root cause that I don't know of yet that I have to get to. So I'm grateful that I had the mental fortitude to keep digging, to keep learning and doing my own research, and to get some answers. I have been able to take some of my biggest struggles in my life and turn them into my ability to help people. So going through my gut health journey allowed me to then create a program called the 4-Week Gut Protocol to help people with their own gut health journey. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, it's not the end all be all. It's not going to solve every problem. You might need to go get blood work, but it's a first step in to recognize what might be going on with certain things that are related to gut health, because it's really an emerging science. Like, it's really only come to light in the last 6, 7, 8 years. It doesn't mean it hasn't been studied before that, but it's really become mainstream in the last like 5 to 10 years. And getting to watch other people go on that journey and see some of the transformations that have happened. I'm grateful that I have my health now, but I'm also grateful that I went through that so that I could then help people on their journey.
Yeah, I love that you also talk about the this kind of root cause. We all know it's the thing. I always say that's the closest thing to complete clarity when you're by yourself, lying in bed, and you're about to fall asleep. Right? It's pen and paper, and that's your whole why. That's everything. And we all know, right? Stress causes many, many diseases, and we avoid it, right? We push it off, but unless you name it, unless you deal with the things, right? We don't have to, I know other people that have had gut health issues, and it's tough. It's very, very hard because it forces you to face certain things which were hard to face, and so congratulations on that too.
Thank you.
And what is something about you that people don't know?
Oh gosh. I mean, I feel like over the last 10 years, I've probably shared so much of my life, but I do think that people that are newer to discovering maybe who I am or my page don't really know my background, don't understand all that I've gone through to get to where I am today. Like I said, how I grew up, lower middle class, working. I've lived in 6 different states in my life. It's not been an easy climb, but it's definitely been worth it. And I've put a lot of work into it. I really pride myself on educating myself, maybe not in the traditional way, not necessarily going and sitting in a college classroom, but finding the studies, reading the books. and doing the work so that when I put information out there to help people, it's really coming from the best place in my heart possible to do that. But I think people just sort of see where I am right now and they think, pretty face, in shape, it's so easy, and she's just another influencer that doesn't necessarily always know what she's talking about. And it has definitely not been that.
People will know if your heart is clean or not. It's the best possible that we can do in this world. You have to know, look yourself in the mirror. Am I going with a clean intention or not? Right?
Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you so much, Autumn. Really inspirational, and continue on the work. How can people follow you on social? How can people get your books? Because it's really practical and really great. So thank you.
Thank you so much. On Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, it's at Autumn Calabrese. My website is autumncalabrese.com. You can join me on Body. That is Beachbody On Demand Interactive, where all my workouts, all my nutrition programs are. Or I also have a group called the Good Mood Crew that I started a little over a year ago, just dedicated to putting out information each month, practical tools and tips and things like that to just help improve our mood, make us feel good. Coming out of the pandemic, I felt like we were all in such this dark, stressful place that I just wanted to create a community where there was fun happening and I could do book recommendations and little workout routines and recipes and my favorites of everything to just share and make it all feel a little bit better. So you can join me in any one of those locations, any one of those sites.
Thank you so much, Autumn.
Thank you.
Really great. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Autumn Calabrese. Please subscribe to our YouTube page so you never miss an episode. And if you're currently listening to the show, we'd be grateful for a 5-star rating and review. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you again soon.